I'm Liam, and this is Tour Guide Takes. Directly in front of the White House, we have Lafayette Square, named for Marquis Gautier-Marie Lafayette, direct descendant of French noble knights, who was a black musketeer by age 15, as in D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers. At age 19, he defied his king's orders and came over here to fight in a revolution. He was made a general at age 19 by George Washington himself, who saw in Lafayette what he thought was a young Washington, and Lafayette saw in Washington what he hoped to be an old Lafayette. So it became almost like a father and son duel in a way, as Washington had no children of his own, only his adopted step-grandchildren, including Robert E. Lee, by the way. And at age 24, Lafayette led a battle that arguably won the war for us by running Cornwallis into the ocean in Yorktown, Virginia. And when he was buried in Paris, he was placed under soil from Bunker Hill that he brought with him, honoring his wish to be placed in the land of the two countries he loved, both of which he fought in revolutions for. Now, even though it's his square, he's not in the middle because he's French. In other words, he's not American. So in the four corners, we have four foreign dignitaries of this fight in the Revolutionary War, with Lafayette, Rochambeau, Kosciuszko, and Ferdinand Baron von Steuben, the German-speaking general who did not speak any English but still saw fit to train our military at Valley Forge. Basically, he figured out if you yell enough, especially in German, people kind of get the hint. And in the middle, we have our war hero himself in the War of 1812, Andrew Jackson. And you might have heard rumors about horse statues. It says 1 foot up means injured in battle, 2 feet up means killed in battle, 4 feet on the ground means died in peacetime, and 4 feet off the ground, we like to say, means you need to quit drinking. 3 out of 4 of these are only true in Gettysburg, as far as the United States is concerned, although they do follow it in other parts of the world. But here, we don't follow that. 20 out of 30 of our horse statues here in DC would not follow that. And Jackson himself got 2 feet off the ground, but he did not die in the Battle of New Orleans. He did not die in the War of 1812. He went on to become president. But this is the first statue in the history of the world of a man and a horse reared up on its hind legs that's unsupported by any other means. So it was a groundbreaking design from an artistic standpoint. The White House itself is 55,000 square feet, 132 rooms, 4 levels up plus 2 levels. One's kind of like a sub-basement down. And the president lives on the 3rd floor behind a railing up top, kind of like a penthouse level or living annex. And was not originally white. It was a sandstone color. Up until 1814, during the War of 1812, when Canadian and British forces redecorated for us by burning it more or less to the ground, leaving only the stone exterior, which was charred so bad we had to whitewash it. Still was not called the White House for almost 100 years, up until Theodore Roosevelt threw a party and on the invitation wrote address, the White House. Name just kind of stuck. And the East Wing, where the First Lady's office is, and the West Wing, where the President's office is, were not added until Theodore Roosevelt as well, and later Taft added the Oval Office. And it was completely renovated under Truman's administration, where he stayed over the Blair House across the street for a few years. And next door to the White House, we have the U.S. Department of Treasury, which is the 3rd oldest federally occupied public building in the city, and therefore the nation. That's because the White House is the oldest, the Capitol is the 2nd oldest, and even back then, they could not get along. So Andrew Jackson hated Congress so much, tried to abolish it once, and said he did not want to see them fools up on Capitol Hill from his house, the White House, because it made him sick. So he built the Department of Treasury to block the view from one to the other. Now this worked out pretty well for him apparently, because he pulled off something amazing. Him and Albert Gallatin, his Secretary of Treasury, is actually right in front of the Treasury Department. Jackson hated owing people money, so he insisted the first thing you do is pay your bills. So he did. All of them, including our Revolutionary War debt. And we ran debt-free, balanced budget for 1 year as a nation in 1835. Now this is the north face of the White House. There is a north face and a south face, no front or back. But if you wanted to call one the front, it'd be this, because the address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and this is Pennsylvania Avenue that I am getting this video from. And this section of Pennsylvania Avenue has been closed for vehicular traffic since 1995, after the Oklahoma City bombing. I've heard rumors that they talked briefly about opening it back up in 2001, but then September came and made it a permanent closure. You used to be able to walk right up to the edge of the fence until a little over a year ago, when a man jumped the fence and made his way inside the White House and up to the 3rd floor. Before that, it was not uncommon for people to jump the fence. It happened basically every month, and for a while it was only a $10 ticket. This time is a little more serious because somebody made it inside. And how did he make it inside? Well, most of the security was focused on the south lawn as the president was landing in his helicopter, so there was a little light on the north lawn here where he jumped the fence. So at that point, they added the second bicycle rack barrier fence you're seeing right out front. And many people ask, how do you get a tour of the White House? Well, there's two different sides. There's the east wing and the west wing. The east wing, you write to a congressman. And if you do not have a congressman, say you're from overseas, try writing our delegate here in DC, Eleanor Holmes Norton. She's done a pretty good job of getting these people in that could not get through because they're not from the States typically. And process takes about 6 weeks up to maybe 6 months. And to understand what they're going through, they have staffers that are sitting there basically refreshing a screen over and over again, looking for an opening to come up in that time that you're here. And then on top of that, have to go through your background checks, make sure everything all lines up. So it's not an easy process. And it's actually been that way since 2001, after September 11th. Now the West Wing, on the other hand, and the old Executive Office Building, from my understanding, there's only one way to get a tour of that, and that's if you know somebody who works there. So that's a lot more difficult. So this building behind me was once called the ugliest building in America by Mark Twain. The same man who once got a letter from an editor said, "Dear sir, your story is missing 1,000 pieces of punctuation, please revise." So he responded with, "Dear sir, on the following pages you shall find 1,000 periods, 1,000 commas, 1,000 quotation marks, exclamation marks, and question marks. Please insert at your own will." In other words, he was a cynic, but also not the only one who felt that way. Truman called this the greatest eyesore in DC, and Eisenhower tried to tear it down but found it was going to cost too much because it's basically a concrete mountain. So in a great sense of irony and humor, he renamed the building the Dwight D. Eisenhower Executive Office Building. It was the former home of the Departments of State, Navy, and War. All of its graduates moved out in the early 1900s, and now it's White House offices, including the ceremonial office for the Vice President and several of his advisory boards. About 10% of the White House offices, so the other 90% is just down the street of the new Executive Office Building. So we call this the Old Executive Office Building, or the OEB for short.